Your eyes are not reading these lines by accident. As you absorb these words, as your attention settles here, as your chest tightens with a strange mix of fatigue and anticipation, something invisible is already in motion. You have arrived at a point where life stops distracting you and starts speaking to you. Carl Jung called this synchronicity, that moment when the outer world and the inner world are no longer separate, but collapse into a single, meaningful message meant for you and only you. Can you feel it? That tension inside you is not ordinary exhaustion. It is not just stress or routine or the weight of another long day. It is friction. The friction between who you have been and who you are no longer able to avoid becoming. Part of you is trying to survive. Another part is trying to be born. It feels like standing between two radio frequencies, static everywhere. Yet, beneath the noise, a new melody is beginning to form. Still distorted, still unfamiliar, but undeniably real. Your body already knows. Your breathing has changed, even if you didn't consciously notice. Your nervous system is recalibrating. Your cells are reorganizing in ways the rational mind cannot track. Something old is dissolving, something new is emerging, and yes, this process hurts, because it shakes the very foundation of identity. For years, you believed you were the story you told yourself about who you are, your failures, your limitations, your history with money, relationships, health, worth. But you forgot something essential. You are not the story. You are the storyteller. Before we go further, I want you to do something deliberate. Go to the comments and write a single word. Metamorphosis. Do not type it mechanically. Do not do it half-present. Write it from the center of your being. Metamorphosis is not simple change. It is not improvement. It is not adjustment. It is total transformation. It is the moment the caterpillar does not negotiate with the past. It dissolves it. When you write metamorphosis, you are making a declaration, not to the algorithm, not to other people, to yourself. You are declaring that you are no longer available for the version of you that only survived. You are choosing to become the version that lives. Each comment becomes a signal, each syllable a beacon, a resonance field of people who refuse to remain small. Pause, breathe deeply, and write metamorphosis. Let it become a pact with your soul, a reminder you cannot unsee. Jung understood this law deeply. We do not become enlightened by imagining beings of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You are standing at that threshold now. The darkness is no longer your enemy. It is becoming your teacher. What once felt like chaos is initiation. What feels like loss is space being cleared. What feels like confusion is the collapse of an identity that no longer fits your frequency. Perhaps lately you felt like a stranger in your own life, as if the world grew louder, people more distant, motivation harder to grasp, meaning thinner. You are not broken. You are recalibrating. Your frequency has shifted so close to who you are becoming that everything misaligned is falling away. Yes, it hurts. All metamorphosis hurts. But what is happening inside you is real and necessary. You did not arrive here by curiosity. You are here because a deeper layer of you, older, wiser, more complete, decided the timing was no longer negotiable. Your future self is reaching backward. Every sentence that resonates, every image that stirs emotion, every sudden insight, these are coordinates, signals from the version of you that already crossed this threshold. The change is not coming. The change has already begun. And the fact that you are still here, still listening, means a door has opened inside you. Welcome to the point where the mind surrenders and the soul remembers. Understand this clearly. Everything you believed about change was incomplete. You were taught that life would shift when something external aligned, when the money arrived, when someone finally chose you, when the chaos settled, but the truth is inverted. Nothing outside can change until something inside symbolically dies. This is not metaphor, it is biological. Your nervous system is engaged in a silent war between familiar patterns and emerging potential. Every repetitive thought, every stagnant emotion, every automatic reaction, they are neural loops trying to anchor you to the past. Jung called this phase nigredo, the blackening, the psychological death before rebirth. In quantum terms, this is the moment before collapse, the space where infinite potential exists, but the old observation no longer holds. You are no longer observing reality as who you were, and because the observer is changing, the observed world must follow. The discomfort you feel is not resistance to growth, it is growth. Your system is releasing timelines that no longer match your frequency. This is why you feel unsettled, why certainty dissolves, why familiar desires lose their grip. You are not losing direction, you are shedding conditioning. And once this process starts, it cannot be undone, because once the soul remembers, it will not accept unconscious living again. You have reached the point where survival is no longer enough. The old self is dissolving. The new self is not fully formed, and you are standing in between. This is the most powerful place a human being can stand, not because it is comfortable, but because it is creative. The future is not ahead of you, it is forming through you. And if you stay present, if you stop resisting, if you allow the symbolic death to complete, you will not become someone else. You will become who you were always meant to be. That is why you feel exhausted, not because of stress, not because of laziness. It is quantum resistance, the collision between your old frequency and the vibration you are stepping into. Carl Jung understood this. Well, he said that when the soul is ready for transformation, life begins to show you broken mirrors. Relationships start to fall apart. Jobs no longer reflect who you are. Friendships lose resonance. You are not losing anything. You are creating space. But the ego calls this destruction because it cannot comprehend that the caterpillar must dissolve for the wings to emerge. This feeling of being stuck in a waiting pattern is not punishment. It is preparation. You are standing between two doors. One door leads back to the familiar, safe, predictable, known. The other leads into the unknown, into learning, into activation, into the version of you that does not yet exist in form, but already exists in potential. This is where most people turn back. They mistake fear for a warning, but fear at this stage is not a stop sign. It is confirmation. Fear appears only when something inside you is about to break the structure of who you used to be. Your mind will whisper, "You're not ready. Wait a little longer. You need more proof." But those words do not come from the soul. They come from the old self, afraid of dying. Remember this clearly. Your brain is not designed to make you fulfilled. It is designed to keep you alive. And it will always choose the familiar. Even if the familiar hurts, it would rather keep you in a known hell than risk an unknown paradise. As long as you obey that voice, the cycle repeats. The same people, the same endings, the same excuses, until one moment arrives, one precise moment. The moment the soul becomes tired of repeating the script, the moment you say, "I cannot be this version of myself anymore." That is the quantum turning point. That is when your frequency shifts. And when your frequency shifts, reality reorganizes. What once looked like coincidence begins to align. A video appears. A book finds you. A conversation lands at the exact moment. An intuition interrupts your thoughts. Nothing is accidental. It is resonance. The field responds when your vibration changes, not when your mouth asks for it. That is why this message found you. Not because an algorithm decided it, but because your internal signal became strong enough to attract it. You may not be able to explain it, but you feel it. a subtle pull, a quiet call, not in your thoughts, but in your chest. You may believe you are on the edge of collapse, but in truth, you are on the edge of expansion. Chaos does not mean failure. Chaos means the old structure can no longer sustain the frequency you are emitting. Your body experiences this as fatigue, your mind interprets it as doubt, your soul recognizes it as rebirth. When everything feels like it is falling apart, remember this: it is not the end of anything. It is the release of what you are no longer. There is a law to transformation. Just before alignment, disorder intensifies. You are so close that you can feel the friction between the past dissolving and the future forming. Your old self knows there is no return. That is why it screams. It will throw memories at you, temptations, distractions, anything to pull you back across the threshold. But now you see clearly that noise is not a warning. It is evidence. Evidence that the contraction before birth has begun. If you do not run, if you stay, if you breathe through the pressure, the universe has no choice. It must recalibrate to the frequency of who you are becoming. Do not misunderstand this. This is not cheap motivation. This is spiritual. Biology. Your neurons are dissolving old pathways. Your nervous system is rewiring. Your electromagnetic field is rewriting its signature. You are literally becoming a new energetic version of yourself. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, you will doubt. And when everything inside you says, stop, remember this: you did not come here to survive. You came here to evolve. So do not escape the process. Stay in the fire. Breathe the fear and let it burn. Because what remains after everything false dissolves is what you have always been. The future is not approaching you. It is entering you. And if you are still listening, still here, still present, your soul has already decided. The change is not coming. The change is you. You are shifting into a different frequency. And when the observer changes, everything begins to synchronize. Read more books, repeat affirmations, dress differently, find a new relationship, move to another city, reinvent yourself on the outside. That is what they told you change was supposed to look like. They taught you that transformation is accumulation, more knowledge, more habits, more techniques, more identities layered on top of the old one. But what no one told you, not the gurus, not the self-help books, not the false masters of optimism, is that real change does not come from addition. It comes from subtraction. Transformation is not about forcing a new identity over the old one. It is about allowing the identity that no longer resonates to die. That is the myth I am dismantling here. You do not need to become someone new. You need to remember who you were before fear shaped you into who you became. Carl Jung said this with brutal clarity. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole, and becoming whole requires one thing above all else: facing what you avoided your entire life, the shadow, the part of you you deny, the part you hide, the part you learn to repress, even from yourself. There is no transformation as long as the shadow is rejected, because what you deny controls you, and what you accept begins to dissolve. The old paradigm of change says, think positive, focus on the light, avoid the darkness. But Jung knew the deeper law. What is not brought into consciousness repeats. You are not exhausted because of what you lack. You are exhausted because of what you repress. You tried to heal by staying busy. You tried to move forward by outrunning the past. You tried to love yourself without touching your scars. That is not evolution. Real change begins the moment you stop escaping inward. When you realize you do not need to destroy fear, only understand why it still visits you. When you see that emotions are not obstacles but messengers. That every negative thought is not an enemy but a signal from the soul saying, there is something here you have not yet embraced. The personal growth myth taught you to conquer your shadows. Jung invites you to speak with them. Because behind every self-destructive impulse is a legitimate unmet need. Behind every fear is a part of you seeking safety. Behind every act of sabotage is a fragment longing for love. Here is the truth few are willing to face. Illumination does not happen at the peak. It happens in the descent. The soul does not ascend by avoiding the mud. It redeems itself by entering it consciously. This is inner alchemy, turning the lead of your wounds into the gold of awareness, not by denying pain, but by using it as sacred. Fire! And this is where neuroscience enters the picture. When you face your darkness without running, your brain literally rewires itself. Fear-based neural pathways weaken, presence and regulation strengthen. This is not mysticism, it is plasticity. Each time you choose to feel instead of flee, you reprogram your biology. Healing is not emotional first, it is electrical. Your electromagnetic field changes when you stop fighting yourself. The heart, producing a field thousands of times stronger. Then the brain moves from incoherence to coherence, and the universe responds to coherence like a quantum mirror, reflecting experiences aligned with your internal state. This is the secret no one explains clearly. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. Your words do not create reality, your frequency does, and your frequency is born from the integration of light and shadow. The ego seeks perfection, the soul seeks wholeness. The ego wants to shine, the soul wants to integrate. The ego strives to prove its worth, the soul simply observes. The moment you stop chasing an upgraded version of yourself and remember who you authentically are, reality begins to respond, because authenticity is the most powerful vibrational state that exists. So let it all go. Stop correcting yourself. Stop trying to be more spiritual, more intelligent, more successful. Pause, breathe, and notice this simple truth. The only barrier between you and abundance is the belief that something is missing. Your mind whispers that you are not ready, but your soul has been waiting for this moment for centuries. The myth is over. Change is not a destination. It is a return. Not a conquest, but a remembrance. You were never meant to become more. You were meant to become whole. Your frequency already exists, and the moment you stop resisting it, life begins to rearrange itself around who you truly are. You searched outside, but the real journey was always inward. Now, as your breath slows and your thoughts begin to loosen their grip, something inside you is awakening. Not a new you, but the you that always existed. The one the mind forgot, but the heart never stopped recognizing. You felt something shifting, even if you couldn't explain it. This is not just fatigue, not another crisis. It is the friction between who you were and who you are destined to become. And if you are here now, it is because there is no going back. Your unconscious has already activated the process. What matters now is understanding what is happening inside you, so you don't sabotage what life is trying to give you, because what you do not understand, you repeat. And what you understand, you transform. So listen carefully. These 5 principles are the invisible pillars of every deep transformation. Each one is a key. And when all 5 align, reality reorganizes itself around you. First, the mirror does not lie. Everything that irritates you, wounds you, or obsesses you about others is not about them. It is about you. This was Jung's first great insight. The world is a symbolic mirror of the unconscious. Every person who enters your life is playing a role in a drama written by your psyche. The arrogant one reveals your hunger for validation. The one who doesn't value you reflects where you abandoned yourself. The one who leaves exposes the part of you that has not yet learned to remain present. When you begin to look with this awareness, the drama dissolves. You stop reacting. You start observing. The mirror stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. This is what Jung called integration. You realize the external enemy was an internal wound asking to be seen. Second, the shadow does not destroy. It liberates. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is the energy you repressed in order to belong, the anger you were never allowed to express, the sadness you were taught to swallow, the ambition you labeled as selfishness. Nothing you denied disappeared. It only went underground, and what hides in the dark seeks the light, not to punish you, but to complete you. Most people try to escape the shadow with surface spirituality, positive phrases, forced smiles, but the unconscious cannot be fooled. As long as you deny your darkness, it will run your life from behind the scenes. Meeting the shadow means standing before the deepest mirror and saying, "Yes, this too is me." In that moment, trapped energy is released. What once poisoned you begins to fuel you. The fire stops burning you and starts illuminating you. Third, the body remembers what the mind forgets. You cannot heal by thinking alone. The body is the diary of the soul. Every unresolved trauma, every unexpressed emotion is stored in the nervous system as silent memory. If you ignore the body speaks louder. Pain without cause, insomnia, anxiety with no clear reason. You are not broken. You are full of unprocessed memory. Neuroscience confirms this. Your biology responds to emotion. Before logic, every thought triggers chemistry. Every feeling alters your breath, your heart rhythm, your immunity. When you observe without judgment, when you breathe into pain instead of escaping, you give the body permission to release. Jung said the unconscious speaks through symbols and symptoms. Your body is the most direct symbol of all. Listen to it. It is not punishing you. It is guiding you. Fourth, the soul does not want success. It wants coherence. We are obsessed with achievement, goals, titles, validation. But the soul does not measure progress. It measures harmony. There is no harmony when your life contradicts your inner truth. Maybe your body is in one place, but your heart in another. Maybe your work no longer resonates. Maybe you are attached to someone who belongs to your old identity. Incoherence hurts because it fractures your energetic field, and what is divided cannot manifest. Every time you say yes when you mean no, your frequency fragments. The solution is not escape. It is alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions point in the same direction, the universe has no choice. It does not respond to reward you. It responds because it recognizes itself in you. Fifth, transformation does not require force. It requires truth. The ego believes change comes from control, from effort, from becoming better. The soul knows change comes from honesty, from presence, from integration. When you stop trying to fix yourself and start listening to yourself, the inner war ends. Shadow and light stop competing and begin cooperating. This is individuation, not becoming ideal, becoming whole. At that point, reality no longer resists you because you are no longer resisting yourself. Your frequency stabilizes, your field becomes coherent, your life begins to respond, not because you demanded it, but because you finally aligned with who you truly are. And that alignment changes everything. The soul does not seek success, it seeks coherence. And when coherence is found, success arrives naturally, not as a reward, but as a consequence. Now we arrive at the fifth principle, the one the ego fears the most, and the one that completes the process. Die before you are reborn. Every real transformation requires a symbolic death. There is no rebirth without mourning. To die before rebirth means releasing identities, roles, beliefs, relationships, and versions of yourself that have completed their cycle. You cannot enter a new world carrying the weight of the old one. Yes, it will hurt. But this pain is not punishment, it is purification. Jung called this stage the dark night of the soul, the passage where everything collapses, where meaning dissolves, where you believe you have lost yourself, but you are not lost. You are between worlds. The old self is dissolving, the new self has not yet fully formed. The emptiness you feel is not absence, it is a womb, and if you dare to remain there, without escaping, without numbing, without rushing, something profound happens. Fear turns into certainty, confusion becomes clarity. Silence transforms into a presence so grounded, so real, that you no longer need to prove anything. These 5 principles are the invisible architecture of awakening, the mirror that teaches you, the shadow that completes you, the body that speaks truth, the soul that demands coherence, and the symbolic death that gives birth to life. 5 keys, 5 codes, 5 stages of the same journey, the return to yourself. If these words resonate, it is not because you are learning something new. It is because something ancient is being remembered. The soul does not learn. It remembers. And when you remember who you are, reality cannot help but remember you too. Up to this point you have descended. You examined your shadows. You felt your fears. You recognized your masks. You understood you were never broken, only transforming. This is where everything shifts, where darkness stops being an enemy and becomes an ally. Every metamorphosis moves through 3 phases: dissolution, chaos, reconstruction. You are standing precisely between the second and the third. Breathe. Look around. Nothing is out of place. The stillness around you is not emptiness. It is space. Chaos is not a sign of loss. It is expansion. You are crossing the threshold between the ego, which controls, and the soul, which trusts. And this does not happen once. It happens every time you choose not to react from fear. Every time you remain present when the mind screams for escape. Jung said, "We do not reach enlightenment by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And here is the part few understand. When darkness becomes conscious, it loses its power. And in that moment, the soul is freed, your body feels it, your breath changes, your energy stabilizes, and something inside you, something without a name, finally feels at home. Not because the outer world suddenly improved, but because the inner war ended. The secret was never control, it was trust, because what goes wrong for you. What leaves was never truly yours, and what hurts shapes exactly what is coming. Even suffering has symmetry. The wound that hurt the most taught you how to love consciously. The rejection that broke you returned you to your own worth. The chaos you called unfair was training your soul to hold what you were about to receive. Nothing was wasted. Nothing. Now you understand why everything had to fall apart. Your old self could not sustain the energy of your new self. The structure was too small, the story too limited, so it collapsed. And that collapse was the universe's greatest act of love toward you. You begin to see life without the lens of fear. In this quiet transition, everything changes because the world does not respond to your desires. It responds to your frequency, and your frequency no longer vibrates with lack. It vibrates with certainty. This is rebirth. Remembering that you were always whole, even when you felt empty. What you called loss was space. What you called loneliness was silence, so you could hear your truth. What you called destiny was you calling yourself from the future, your future self, the one who already lives without fear, without scarcity, without fragmentation. That self was never ahead of you. It was guiding you here, and now you remember. The force that loves, that creates without effort, has already set everything in motion across time itself. Not so you would chase it, but so you would become it. This is the final alchemy. Stop desiring, begin being, stop asking, begin radiating, stop waiting for the miracle, become the miracle. Your biology already understands this. Your mind is catching up now. But your soul has known it since the beginning. That is why you are here. That is why you are still listening. You are one thought away from a new reality. One conscious breath away from your own expansion, one decision away from stopping the doubt and becoming the frequency that attracts everything. When that moment comes, when you stop seeking external proof in order to believe in yourself, the universe yields to your coherence. Because belief is not hope. Belief is alignment. It is living as if it is already real until it becomes real. Look around you now with different eyes. Nothing has changed, and yet everything is different, because you have changed. And when the observer changes, reality follows. This is Jungian individuation, the union of the conscious and the unconscious, of mind and soul, of the individual and their deepest archetype. You have crossed the threshold. You are no longer the one who doubts. You are the one who remembers. The next time fear returns, smile, not because you don't feel it, but because you now know who is observing it. The next time the world seems to fall apart, feel gratitude, not because you enjoy pain, but because you understand this truth. The soul never destroys. It transforms. One day when you look back, you will not see ruins. You will see roots, because from the very ground where you fell, something new has grown. You. The change you were searching for did not come to you. It came from you. And when you finally release the need to understand how everything will happen, when you allow yourself to breathe inside the mystery, you encounter the simplest and most powerful miracle of all. You exist without masks. You are aligned with your soul. You live from love, not fear. Here the game ends, and truth begins. If you have made it this far, it is because the transformation has already begun. There is no turning back. Look around again. Nothing has changed, and yet everything is different. Your breath is calmer. Your mind no longer hunts for answers. It rests in presence, and inside you a certainty begins to burn. You can no longer become who you used to be. That is freedom. Not the freedom of conquest, but the freedom of no longer chasing what you are not. Jung said, "The greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And this does not happen through affirmations, nor habits alone. It happens when you allow yourself to feel what you avoided for years, when you remain with discomfort instead of escaping it, until its message reveals itself. What you called pain was a part of you asking to come home. What you called loss was space being cleared. What you called destiny was your unconscious remembering the map you drew. Before you forgot who you were, now you see. Nothing was a mistake. Every person, every silence, every pause, all of it was a dialogue between your shadow and your light. Even the parts of your story that brought shame were necessary. They shaped the exact frequency of who you are now. There are no more battles to fight. The enemy dissolves the moment you realize it was never outside. Forgiveness stops being a moral gesture and becomes an act of spiritual intelligence, releasing energy that no longer belongs to you. I am not speaking to your ears now. I am speaking to your soul, to that inner voice that does not need motivation because it already remembers, to that silent fire that knows the change is not coming. It is here. Your old self is dying gracefully, and your authentic self, unmasked, coherent, whole, steps forward, not as someone new, but as the same you, without fear. Let everything fall away if it must. The universe does not destroy, it reorganizes. If something leaves, it is because it cannot exist at the frequency you are now emitting. You do not need to plan your awakening. You only need to stop resisting it. Because awakening is not an event, it is a quiet decision you make each morning to not act from fear, to not beg for love, to not abandon yourself. The change is not ahead of you, it is alive within you. Do not justify your light to make others comfortable. If one day you feel lost again, return to this truth and repeat it quietly. I am not falling. I am being formed. Even my shadows bow before the awareness of who I am. This is not an ending, it is a return. You cross the mirror. You remembered that the divine is not outside of you, it pulses within your chest. As long as you breathe, you emit this new frequency, the frequency of the human who stopped surviving and began creating. The frequency of the soul that no longer seeks proof, but resonance. The frequency of the spirit that understands the universe does not respond to words, but to states of being. So choose not fear, but presence. Choose to speak less from the mind and more from truth. Choose to stop asking for signs and become one. Choose the frequency of certainty, even if the world has not yet caught up. Because when coherence stabilizes, the field responds. When heart and mind synchronize, reality bends. When you choose unconditional being, the universe has no alternative. Life rewrites itself. Remember this whenever doubt returns. You did not come into this world searching for miracles. You came to be a miracle. You arrived here not by chance, but by remembrance. Your transformation has already begun, and the universe has just confirmed it. Now stay here for a moment. Do not rush to the next video. Do not open another window. Do not seek distraction. Just breathe. Feel your chest rise and fall. Listen to the steady pulse within you. That is not only your heart, it is the echo of your soul saying, I am here. After everything you have heard, you do not need to understand it all. You only need to remember. Remember that nothing outside will change until something inside shifts first. Remember that chaos did not come to destroy you, but to restore your power. Remember that you are not becoming better. You are becoming more authentic. Every word that resonated within you was a spark awakening something dormant. Every silence between sentences was a doorway inward. Every breath you take now is a quiet affirmation of life. You do not need clarity. You do not need readiness, transformatio. It happens the moment you stop resisting it. That sensation moving through your body now, somewhere between calm and vertigo, is not confusion. It is frequency, the precise vibration of someone waking up from a long dream. The mind will try to turn this into theory. Do not listen. The soul does not speak in concepts. It speaks in certainty. If even for a second you felt something align without explanation, then you already touched the essence. Your story was not a mistake. It was training. Every fall was calibration. Every loss was purification. Nothing you lived was outside the design. It was not a mental plan. It was a spiritual one. Jung said the soul has its own clock. Yours has just struck a new hour. An hour without masks. An hour without fear. An hour in which you do not need to become anything else because you already are. Before you go, do one thing. Close your eyes for a moment and feel gratitude, not towards someone, but toward the process itself for bringing you here. Because while you believed you were searching for this message was searching for you. And now that you have found each other, what comes next depends on you, not on luck, not on circumstances, on you. Every thought you choose to nurture from today forward, every emotion you choose not to deny, every small act of alignment with your truth becomes a seed in the quantum field you call life. The change is not in the future. It is in every conscious breath you take now. If this message made you pause, if it stirred something in your chest, if you felt a knot in your throat or a quiet shiver across your skin, do not ignore it. That was your soul saying, "At last, you heard me." So walk differently. Move more slowly, look more deeply, love more gently, not because the world deserves it, but because you can no longer love any other way. And when your mind doubts again, and it will, remember this: I did not come here to survive. I came here to awaken. That is the true beginning. If this message touched something alive within you, do not let it end here. Let it travel. Share it, not with the world around you, but with the part of yourself that finally remembered. You know someone needs this, someone who has been searching for signs for a long time and hasn't realized yet that this is the sign. You can be that signal. If you felt something shift inside you, even subtly like this video, not as support for content, but as a collective affirmation of consciousness, subscribe to this channel if you want to continue exploring the deepest layers of the mind and the soul. This is not temporary motivation. This is remembrance. This is what it means to be human with an awakened soul. Leave a comment with what you felt, not an intellectual response, but a small truth, a sentence, an emotion, an intuition. That too is transformative energy, because when you share your inner process, others recognize their own path. And without knowing one another, we ignite an invisible network of souls, awakening at the same time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for remembering. And remember this: the universe is not watching you. The universe is feeling you. Until the next awakening. Now let us go deeper. Shadow work, this central pillar of Jungian psychology, deserves a deeper reflection. Your shadow is not only what you judge as negative within yourself, it is everything you excluded from your conscious self-image. Sometimes the shadow hides not darkness, but light. You may have hidden your intelligence to avoid standing out, suppressed your creativity because it felt unrealistic, silenced your sensitivity because the world labeled it weakness. This is what Jung called the golden shadow: repressed talents, unlived gifts, dormant potentials. When these aspects remain unconscious, they drain energy. When they are recognized and expressed, they release immense vitality. You feel more alive, more authentic, more whole. This is not perfection, this is completion. Jung developed a method to access these layers called active imagination. It is not passive fantasy, it is not daydreaming, it is a conscious dialogue with the unconscious. You allow images, figures, or inner scenes to emerge naturally, and then you engage them. You ask, "Who are you? What do you want from me? What do you need me to see?" Often the answers that arise could never be produced by rational thought. These figures are not external. They are aspects of your own psyche asking for integration. Through active imagination, the unconscious stops being an enemy. It becomes an inner ally, a wise partner. This practice becomes especially powerful in moments of stagnation, confusion, or important decisions. And here we must speak of two essential archetypes, anima and animus. These concepts go far beyond gender. The anima represents the receptive, intuitive, emotional, and connective dimension of the psyche. The animus represents the active, structuring, discerning, and decisive dimension. Every human being carries both. Psychological maturity requires the integration of both. When these aspects are projected outward, when we expect others to feel for us, decide for us, or complete us, dependency is born, imbalance enters relationships. To integrate the anima is to cultivate your own depth of feeling, intuition, beauty, creativity, and receptivity. It means honoring your need for meaning, harmony, and emotional truth. To integrate the animus is to develop clarity, direction, inner authority, and the ability to act with structure and purpose. When these forces are integrated internally, relationships stop being arenas of need. They become spaces of meeting. You no longer search for completion in others because you carry coherence within yourself. This is individuation, not becoming someone else, but reclaiming everything you were. The shadow no longer controls you from behind. The anima no longer seeks projection. The animus no longer dominates or retreats. They collaborate. And when that happens, something profound shifts. You stop surviving. You start embodying, not as theory, not as belief, but as lived truth. And from that place, life no longer needs to convince you. It responds. The development of self-affirmation is essential. It means recognizing your own intellectual authority, owning your capacity to think, decide, and act with intention, cultivating leadership from within instead of outsourcing direction to others. When these aspects are integrated, you no longer need someone else to decide for you, validate you, or structure your life. This integration leads to what Jung called psychic wholeness. You become a complete individual, able to give and receive, to lead and to follow, to structure and to surrender. And from that place, relationships change. You no longer enter them as someone incomplete seeking completion, but as a whole being choosing connection. Another foundational pillar in Jung's psychology is the system of the four psychological functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Most people develop one or two of these functions while neglecting the others. This one-sided development creates imbalance and limits the experience of wholeness. Thinking is the function of logic, analysis, and categorization. It seeks clarity through reason and structure. Those dominant in thinking are often objective, systematic, and critical. But when thinking is overdeveloped, it can disconnect you from emotion, the body, and intuition. Feeling is the function that assigns value and meaning. It is not the same as emotion. Feeling is a rational function based on personal values. Those dominant in feeling are often empathetic, relational, and value-driven. But when feeling is overdeveloped, boundaries blur and objectivity can be lost. Sensation is the function that perceives the concrete world through the senses. It grounds you in reality, details, and the present moment. Those dominant in sensation are practical, realistic, and embodied, but when sensation dominates, deeper patterns and future possibilities may be overlooked. Intuition is the function that perceives potential, symbols, and hidden meanings. It sees what could be, not just what is. Those dominant in intuition are visionary, creative, and future-oriented. But when intuition is unchecked, it can drift away from reality and practical needs. Individuation requires the development of all four functions. One or two will always remain dominant, but the others must be consciously cultivated. If you are primarily a thinker, growth comes through feeling, sensation, and intuition. If you are primarily a feeler, growth comes through thinking, grounding, and vision. Developing the inferior functions is uncomfortable. It confronts you with your weaknesses. A thinker may feel exposed when expressing emotion. A feeler may feel cold when analyzing objectively. An intuitive may feel constrained by structure. A sensor may feel lost when engaging abstraction. But this discomfort is not failure, it is expansion. When the four functions integrate, Jung called this differentiated consciousness. You gain flexibility. You can analyze when needed, feel when appropriate, sense what is real, and intuit what is possible. You are no longer trapped in one mode of being. Equally essential are the attitude types, introversion and extroversion. These terms are deeply misunderstood. Introversion is not shyness. Extroversion is not sociability. They describe where psychic energy naturally flows. Introversion means energy turns inward, toward reflection, ideas, inner images, and meaning. Introverts recharge through solitude and depth. They value silence, process slowly, and often carry profound insights. Extroversion means energy flows outward, toward engagement, action, people, and experience. Extroverts recharge through interaction and expression. They bring Ideas into form and movement. Psychological maturity does not mean changing your type. It means integrating the opposite attitude. The introvert learns to express. The extrovert learns to reflect. Wholeness emerges when inner and outer worlds communicate. This is the essence of individuation, not fixing yourself, not improving yourself, but integrating yourself. When thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition work together. When introversion and extroversion balance. When authority returns inward, you stop living reactively. You begin living consciously, not fragmented, not divided, but whole. The orientation of the extrovert is directed toward the outer world, toward people, activity, objects, and experience. Extroverts draw energy from interaction, stimulation, and movement. They process life quickly and dynamically, preferring breadth over depth. They are often expressive, communicative, and energized by feedback from the environment. But full individuation requires both attitudes. An introvert must learn to step outward, to communicate inner insights, to act in the world, to give form to what lives inside. An extrovert must learn to turn inward, to slow down, to reflect, to build a conscious relationship with their inner life. For the introvert, the challenge is often courage. They carry deep perceptions, original ideas, and rich inner landscapes, yet hesitate to express them. They may feel overwhelmed by the outer world, or misunderstood by it. Developing extroverted capacities does not mean betraying their nature. It means allowing their inner wealth to reach the world. For the extrovert, the challenge is stillness. They may be so engaged with action, achievement, and stimulation that they lose contact with themselves. Without external validation or activity, anxiety or emptiness can emerge. Developing introverted capacities does not mean isolation. It means discovering a deeper, more stable source of meaning and strength. When introversion and extroversion are integrated, Jung called this psychological flexibility. You learn when to withdraw and reflect, and when to step forward and act. You become less rigid, less reactive, and more responsive to the demands of each moment. This integration often becomes unavoidable in midlife. Between roughly ages 35 and 50, many people experience a profound inner crisis, even when everything looks successful on the outside. Jung observed this repeatedly in his patients. He understood that this crisis was not pathology. It was a signal, a sign that the soul was ready to move from the tasks of the first half of life to the deeper calling of the second. The first half of life is about building the ego. You establish identity, you build a career, you form relationships, you accumulate resources, you find your place in the world. This phase is necessary. You must build a strong ego before you can transcend it. You must establish yourself before you can go beyond limitation. But the second half of life asks different questions. Not, what can I achieve, but what gives my life meaning? Not, how can I succeed, but how can I serve? Not, what do I want, but who am I, really, and what is my contribution? This transition can feel disorienting because the strategies that worked before no longer satisfy. What once motivated you may now feel hollow. What once defined you may now feel empty. This is not failure, it is development. Midlife crisis happens when people try to solve second-half questions with first-half strategies, working harder, accumulating more, proving more, but the unconscious resists this one-sided continuation. It sends signals, boredom, restlessness, relationship conflicts, health issues, existential anxiety. These are not punishments, they are messages. They announce the need for reorientation. A healthy midlife transition requires letting go of ego identities that no longer serve. It means opening to deeper questions of meaning and purpose. Who am I now? What truly matters? What do I want to give, not just gain? This phase can be painful. It may involve releasing security, status, or relationships that are no longer authentic. You may realize the career you built no longer fits, that your relationships lack depth, that your lifestyle does not reflect your true values. But this transition also carries enormous potential. Creativity awakens, wisdom deepens. Life becomes less about appearance and more about truth. What collapses is not your life. It is a structure that has become too small for who you are becoming, and that collapse, when understood consciously, is not an ending. It is the beginning of individuation. This phase can also become one of renewal. Many people discover new talents in midlife, new passions, callings that were inaccessible before. They find the courage to live more authentically, even when that means disappointing expectations that were never truly theirs. This is not regression, it is alignment. The ultimate aim of individuation is the development of a relationship with the self, with a capital S. The self is the deepest and wisest center of your being. It is not the ego. It is not the personality. The ego is the conscious interface that negotiates with the outer world. The self is the greater whole, embracing both the conscious and the unconscious. It includes what you know about yourself and what you have not yet discovered. The self is both personal and transpersonal. It is uniquely yours, and at the same time, it connects you to a larger order of existence. Jung called it the image of God in the soul, not as a religious doctrine, but as the deepest principle of meaning, order, and orientation within the human psyche. Developing a relationship with the self is not a task with an endpoint. It is a lifelong direction, a way of living. When you begin to live from this deeper center, your decisions change. They are no longer driven primarily by fear, approval, or expectation, but by inner coherence, by authenticity, by quiet wisdom. You begin to develop what Jung described as a religious attitude, not in the sense of belonging to a religion, but as a reverence for the mystery of life itself, a trust that existence has order, meaning, and intelligence beyond the ego. You start to experience your life not as a random sequence of events, but as an expression of something larger moving through you. Dreams become more vivid, symbols become more meaningful, synchronicities appear with increasing frequency. These are not accidents, they are communications from the self. They speak a language that transcends logic, yet carries profound guidance. Learning to listen to this symbolic language is an essential part of individuation. This is why mandalas hold such importance in Jungian psychology. Mandalas, circular symbols with a center and symmetrical patterns, are archetypal representations of the self. Jung observed that people often draw or dream of mandalas during periods of deep psychological transformation. They emerge spontaneously, without instruction. They express the psyche's innate movement toward wholeness. The word mandala comes from Sanskrit, meaning circle or completion. You do not need artistic skill to work with them. The value is not in the product, but in the process. Drawing or contemplating mandalas can center consciousness, quiet the mind, and reconnect you with your inner core. They help you feel gathered rather than fragmented. The integration of the spiritual dimension is also essential for full individuation. Jung did not view spirituality as an escape from reality, but as an extension of it. He believed the human psyche contains an innate spiritual function, a natural longing to connect with something greater than the individual ego. This does not require adherence to any doctrine. It requires openness, an openness to the possibility that existence is not meaningless, that life is more than survival, that you are part of something vast and intelligent. This connection can be cultivated through meditation, prayer, time in nature, creative expression, acts of service, or moments of awe and reverence. A spiritual practice places your life within a larger context. It allows meaning to emerge even in suffering. It provides comfort in difficult times and inspiration during creative ones. It reminds you that you are not an isolated fragment, but a participant in a greater whole. This spiritual awakening is not the end of the journey, it is its true beginning. Jung was especially fascinated by alchemy as a symbolic map of the individuation process. The medieval alchemists were not merely trying to turn lead into gold. Their work symbolized a profound inner transformation. Jung recognized that alchemical texts, which appear to describe chemical operations, are actually symbolic descriptions of psychological change. Each stage of the alchemical work corresponds to a stage of inner development. Nigredo, the blackening, represents dissolution, descent, and confrontation with darkness. This is the phase of crisis, depression, loss, and shadow work. It is necessary because old structures must break down before anything new can emerge. Without Nigredo, there is no transformation, and without descent, there is no ascent. This is not failure, it is initiation, the beginning of becoming whole. New forms can emerge. This phase can be intensely painful, yet it is absolutely essential for real transformation. Nothing genuinely new is born without passing through this fire. After Nigredo, the blackening, the descent, the collapse of old structures, comes albedo, the whitening. Albedo represents purification and clarification. After the darkness, after confusion and emotional fragmentation, something subtle begins to appear. Not excitement, not euphoria, but clarity, a quiet, sober light. You begin to understand what actually happened. You stop fighting the past and start integrating it. You see patterns, where before there was only chaos. This is a time of discernment, of early integration, of inner cleansing. The confusion slowly dissolves, and with it, the compulsive need to react. New possibilities emerge, not because you chase them, but because your perception changed. Peace appears, not because everything is resolved, but because meaning is returning. Then comes rubedo, the reddening. Rubedo is the phase of embodiment, vitality, and lived wholeness. This is where transformation stops, being something you work on internally and begins to express itself outwardly. Your life starts to reflect your inner integration. Energy returns, but now it is grounded. Creativity flows, but it is no longer chaotic. Action feels aligned instead of forced. You are no longer trying to become whole. You are functioning from wholeness. The self is no longer an abstract concept. It becomes an active center, shaping your choices, your relationships, your presence in the world. But these alchemical stages do not happen only once. Individuation is not linear. It is spiral. Throughout your life, you will pass through multiple cycles of Nigredo, albedo, and rubedo. Each cycle dismantles deeper layers of illusion. Each one draws you closer to the center of who you truly are. What feels like repetition is actually descent, a return to the same themes at a deeper level of consciousness. Nothing repeats by accident. Nothing collapses without purpose. One of the most direct ways to dialogue with the unconscious during this process is through dreams. Jung approached dreams in a radically different way from Freud. While Freud often reduced dreams to repressed sexual or aggressive impulses, Jung understood dreams as natural, spontaneous expressions of the psyche itself. Dreams are not disguises, they are communications. They guide, warn, compensate, and inform. Jung believed that most dreams have a compensatory function. They balance what is neglected, denied, or exaggerated in waking life. If you live too much in rational control, your dreams may be emotional, chaotic, or symbolic. If you are passive in waking life, your dreams may cast you as active, decisive, even heroic. Dreams seek equilibrium. They attempt to restore psychic wholeness by bringing unconscious material into awareness. Some dreams are also prospective. They reveal directions not yet consciously considered. They hint at what wants to emerge. Others simply process daily experiences, yet even these often contain emotional truths your waking mind overlooked. To work with dreams, Jung recommended keeping a dream journal. Write your dreams immediately upon waking, before the rational mind edits or dismisses them. Record not only the imagery, but the emotional tone. Notice recurring symbols, places, or figures. Then ask yourself, what does this dream want from me? What part of my life does it reflect? What emotion does it awaken? Jung also introduced the technique of amplification. Instead of reducing a dream symbol to a single personal meaning, you explore its mythological, cultural, and archetypal dimensions. A river is not only your emotions, it is also an ancient symbol of life, death, purification, the unconscious, and transformation. Through amplification, personal dreams connect to universal human patterns. Your private inner life becomes part of a timeless psychological story. You realize your struggles are not personal failures. They are human initiations. Not every dream is deeply symbolic. Some reflect physical states or daily stress. A recurring dream of being late may point to pressure, fear of inadequacy, or a life lived out of alignment. Even these dreams deserve attention because they reveal truth. Another essential dimension of individuation is your relationship with nature. Jung spent extensive time in nature and believed that modern humans suffer psychologically because they are cut off from natural rhythms. In nature, we encounter cycles that mirror our inner life: birth, growth, decay, death, and renewal. Nature does not rush. Nature does not justify itself. Nature does not resist change. Spending time in natural environments helps regulate the nervous system, quiet mental noise, and reconnect you with instinctual wisdom. It restores proportion. It reminds you that transformation is not a problem to be solved, but a process to be lived. Many people rediscover creativity, clarity, and emotional grounding simply by returning to natural rhythms, walking, observing, breathing without stimulation. Nature becomes a silent teacher, reflecting the same laws that govern your psyche. Individuation is not about becoming special, enlightened, or superior. It is about becoming real. It is about aligning consciousness with the deeper intelligence already moving through you. When you understand this, transformation no longer feels like punishment. It becomes participation in life, in meaning, in wholeness. And that is the true work. Intuitive and cognitive capacities are naturally refined in environments where life moves according to its own intelligence. Nature does not merely calm the mind, it educates the psyche. In natural settings, perception sharpens, intuition deepens, and thought becomes less fragmented. The nervous system relaxes into coherence, allowing insight to arise without force. Nature does not speak in words, yet it teaches relentlessly through form, rhythm, and process. When you observe animals, you witness unconflicted being. There is no psychological division between instinct and action. An animal does not question whether it should rest, hunt, retreat, or assert itself. It responds to the moment with total presence. This alone offers a profound mirror. Much of human suffering emerges not from circumstances, but from resisting our own inner rhythms. The cycles of the seasons reveal another essential truth. There are times for growth and outward expansion, and times for withdrawal, decay, and silence. Modern life teaches constant productivity, but the psyche does not function linearly. When you ignore the need for inner winter, reflection, rest, descent, the unconscious rebels. Fatigue, anxiety, and loss of meaning are often signals that a natural rhythm has been violated. Honoring these cycles is not weakness, it is psychological intelligence. While individuation is deeply personal, it never occurs in isolation. You do not individuate away from humanity, but within it, you are part of a collective psyche, a cultural lineage, a living web of symbols and shared meaning. Jung understood that personal transformation subtly alters the collective field. When one individual integrates unconscious material, the burden carried by the collective lightens, even if invisibly. This is why individuation carries an ethical dimension. It is not merely about self-realization, but about contribution. A fully individuated person does not seek attention or dominance. They naturally radiate clarity. Their presence stabilizes others. Their work carries depth. Their words contain weight. Contribution may take many forms: creative expression, mentorship, service, craftsmanship, or simply embodying psychological maturity in a fragmented world. Integrating wisdom traditions from different cultures can further deepen this process. Jung studied Eastern philosophy, Gnosticism, alchemy, indigenous symbolism, Christian mysticism, and mythology not as belief systems, but as maps of consciousness. Across cultures, he found recurring archetypal patterns that pointed to universal structures of the psyche. Exploring these traditions does not mean collecting techniques or identities. It means listening deeply to what resonates with your own stage of development. Meditation may cultivate awareness, contemplative prayer may foster humility, Taoist philosophy may teach effortless action, shamanic symbolism may reconnect you with instinct. What matters is not the label, but integration. Wisdom only transforms when it is lived. Creativity plays a crucial role here. Creativity is not reserved for artists. It is an inherent function of the psyche. Whenever inner experience finds outer expression, individuation advances. Writing, painting, music, movement, gardening, building, these are not hobbies, but symbolic acts. Through creation, unconscious material becomes visible, workable, and integrated. During creative processes, unexpected emotions and images often surface. This is not accidental. Creativity bypasses the rational censor and gives voice to what has been silent. Do not fear imperfection. The value lies in authenticity, not polish. Every act of honest creation strengthens your relationship with the self and teaches you to trust your inner voice. Lifelong learning also supports individuation. Jung himself remained a student until his death, continuously expanding his understanding of psychology, symbolism, culture, and the human condition. Stagnation occurs when curiosity dies. When you stop learning, the psyche hardens. New ideas, unfamiliar perspectives, travel, dialogue, these keep consciousness fluid and adaptive. Mentorship is another vital dimension. Learning from those with greater experience can prevent unnecessary suffering, while teaching others clarifies your own understanding. Mentorship does not require formal roles. It emerges organically, through conversation, example, presence. When insight flows in both directions, wisdom becomes embodied rather than abstract. Ultimately, individuation is not a destination. It is a way of living. A continual dialogue between consciousness and the unconscious, a willingness to descend when necessary, integrate what is found, and return with greater wholeness. There is no final state, only deeper alignment. This is not the end of the journey. It is the moment you realize the journey was never meant to end, only to deepen. And from this depth, a different kind of life begins. You are reaching the end of this journey, but not the end of the process. And that distinction matters more than you realize, because individuation does not conclude with answers. It concludes with presence. At this point, nothing dramatic needs to happen. There is no final revelation, no thunder, no cosmic confirmation. What remains now is quieter and infinitely more powerful, a subtle shift in how you inhabit your own life, a different relationship with your thoughts, a deeper trust in what moves beneath the surface. If you listen carefully, you may notice it. The urgency has softened, the constant inner tension has loosened its grip, the need to prove, to rush, to become has begun to dissolve. This is not apathy, this is integration. Carl Jung understood that the self does not announce itself loudly. It does not shout. It does not demand belief. The self emerges when the ego finally stops interfering, when you are no longer obsessed with fixing yourself, improving yourself, escaping yourself. You're no longer trying to arrive. You're learning how to remain present when uncertainty appears, remain conscious when old patterns knock again, remain grounded when the world pulls you back into noise. And it will pull, the world always does. Old expectations will return, old fears will test you, old identities will try to reclaim their place. But something fundamental has changed. You no longer mistake these movements for truth. You see them now as signals, ripples in the psyche, not commands. You understand that thoughts are events, not orders. Emotions are messages, not verdicts. Desire is information, not lack. This is the quiet mastery Jung spoke of, not control over life, but relationship with it. You may notice that problems still exist, but they feel different, less personal, less absolute, as if a deeper part of you is observing while the surface reacts. That observer is not detached, it is compassionate, it is stable, it is awake. This is what it means to live from the self, rather than from the persona. You no longer need to chase meaning. Meaning begins to arise naturally from your choices, your attention, your integrity. You begin to act, not because you are afraid of consequences, but because something within you feels aligned. And alignment is the real currency of transformation. From this place, synchronicity changes character. It no longer feels like magic. It feels like coherence, like life responding not to your wishes, but to your state of being. When your inner world stabilizes, the outer world reorganizes, not perfectly, but honestly. This is not a promise of ease, it is a promise of depth. Depth in relationships, depth in work, depth in silence. You begin to tolerate ambiguity without panic. You can stand in questions without demanding immediate resolution. You allow life to unfold without needing to dominate it. That is maturity of the soul. And if you feel a quiet grief here, know this. It is not sadness for what you lost. It is farewell to who you can no longer be. The old self served its purpose. It protected you when you lacked awareness. It carried you when you did not yet have language for your inner world. There is no need to reject it. There is only the need to let it rest. Integration is not rejection. Integration is gratitude without attachment. From here on, the work becomes simpler, but not easier. It is the work of noticing, of returning, of choosing consciousness again, and again in small moments, in how you speak, in how you listen, in how you pause before reacting. No ritual is required, no identity must be claimed, only this. Stay honest with yourself, because once you have seen, you cannot unsee. Once awareness has entered, denial becomes exhausting, and once the self has been glimpsed, life will no longer tolerate being lived unconsciously. This is not a warning, it is an invitation to live slower, to live truer, to live from the center rather than the edges. You are not finished, you are oriented, and that is enough. Remain here for a moment, let the words fade, let the silence speak. The journey continues, not forward, but inward.